You tried it?
Yeah, it's very nice.
You were live just now, yeah?
Yeah.
Long distance.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على من بعث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته brothers and sisters at home and everybody here today welcome to the second session or the first should I say because the first was an introduction of our series as we go through the qasida or the poem of Imam Al-Busiri entitled the Burdah, all about the Prophet ﷺ and all his love for the Prophet ﷺ. So we spoke in our previous session a little bit about poetry, about the history of poetry, its permissibility of use, and some of the instances in which poetry was recited in front of the Prophet ﷺ. We spoke a little bit about what the subject matter of Imam Busiri's poem is all about, as well as the kind of genre that he's following, which is something called al-Madih al-Nabawi, which is a specific genre that came about later on, but was present even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And we gave examples of al-Nabigh al-Ja'di and Ka'b ibn Zuhair, Hassan ibn Thabit, and all of these other poets that had recited poetry to the Prophet ﷺ in the same genre, which is the praise and aggrandizement of the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. So in this session, inshallah, we're going to go through the first chapter. I'm really excited about this. I'm really nervous as well at the same time because it's something that I'm really, really looking forward to. You know, you look forward to something a lot, you get nervous about it. So hopefully, inshallah, I can deliver, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and hopefully you guys, more importantly, can benefit, inshallah, from the session. That's the most important thing. So without further ado, inshallah, we're going to start the poem. A few things to note, inshallah, before we begin, is that every poem, or most poems in the Arabic language, depending on what genre it is, follow some specific rules. And we're going to see these rules pretty evident in the poem of Imam Al-Busiri. The poem of Imam Al-Busiri is going to follow three things. It's going to have a wazn, or a bahar, which is going to follow, which is this rhythmic pattern of harakat and sukuns, of each line, of each verse. And that's not going to change throughout the poem. It's going to be exactly the same. And this is what is going to follow throughout the poem. This is done, or there's different types of buhur, or sort of rhythmic tones to poems, depending on what type of genre you're doing, and well, it's the choice of the poet, to be fair. And there's roughly about 12 to 14 different types or different rhythmic patterns that you can use. So Imam Al-Busiri is going to follow one specific one. Now, when you follow these rhythmic patterns, what happens is you're almost as if you're confined to these particular patterns. So when you are actually writing your poem, or when you're actually stating whatever it is that you want to state, you have to stick to this particular rhythm. And this rhythm is sort of guided by the number of harakat and sukun or sakanat in the actual verse. Right? So it will be like haraka, haraka, sukun, haraka, 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 sukun, haraka, like that. Like binary, right? 1 1 0 1 1 1 0 1, like that, right? So a little bit of a binary code here in the poem. There's also a qafiyah, and a qafiyah is basically the last part of the verse is going to be one specific particular rhythm, and this rhythm is obviously a meme with a kasra. Yeah, it's usually a 30-second delay. So let's see. Amen. What you got for me, bro? With a kasra. Yeah, it's usually a 30-second delay. Are we live, yeah?
Yeah.
We're still live? Okay, mashallah. There you go. Alhamdulillah. So let's just pretend that bit didn't happen. Let's just keep going with it. Inshallah. Okay, anybody watching at home, and any of you guys here, inshallah, if you want to follow with the reading, there is a translation that I've put together, and that can be found in the description of the actual video on YouTube. So if you guys want to follow along and make it easier, because we're going to do Arabic and English, and the English I don't know if you guys are well versed in poetry, but when it comes to poetry, English in poetry as well is quite difficult to find. So if you're going to find it tough in Arabic, you're definitely going to find it tough. If you're going to find it tough in English, you're definitely going to find it tough in Arabic. Either way, it's going to be difficult. So that is there, inshallah, to help you guys as a guide. Okay. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's begin. So the first verse begins with أمن تذكر جيران بذي سلم مزجت دمعا جرى من مقلة بدم. The translation of which is it from thinking of neighbours past in Dhu Salami that you have mixed blood in tears that flow from eyes steadily? Here Imam Al-Busiri, he opens up his poem with a particular way of speaking. What he's doing here is he is speaking to himself, but not to himself as in him on his own, rather he is imagining himself in front of him and speaking to himself like that. There is a second person that he is speaking to here. And this person that he's speaking to is himself, of course. It's not any third person or any other random person, but it is himself. And this is a common theme with regards to poetry, especially when they're talking about love and passionate subjects. So he says, Amin tadhakkuri jiranin, is it from thinking of neighbours bidhi salami, past in the place called Dhi Salami? He is thinking, Imam Al-Busiri rahimahullah, he's thinking about a group of people that he loves. Jiran are neighbours, right? Jir, jar. Jar is someone that you live next to. But jar isn't someone that you just live next to. Jar is someone that is close to you, close in proximity, close in terms of his status with you, in terms of what he knows about you, his intimacy with you, and so on and so forth. So someone who's really, really close and an intimate friend of yours, that is someone who you can also call a jiran. So is it from the thinking, the contemplating and the remembering of your loved ones in a place called Dhi Salami, مَزَجْتَ دَمْعًا جَرَى مِن مُقْلَةٍ بِدَمِ, that you have mixed blood in tears that flow from your eyes steadily, from the sheer emotive nature of his love for these people, and the fact that they are no longer there anymore because he is thinking of them, and if they were there he would not be thinking with them, rather he would be conversing with them. They've gone from this place with Dhu Salami, but he was once with them in this place, and he spent time with them, he exchanged memories, they had conversations, and they were intimate on different levels. They have now gone from this place, and he is now remembering them, and because the fact that they had gone and they are no longer with him, that has caused him a sadness and a grief. And this sadness and grief has caused him to cry, and he has cried so much and so much that the water in his eyes have now ceased, and there are no longer any tears in his eyes anymore. Rather, what comes out now is tears mixed with blood. And that happens, that's actually a medical condition as well, and that happens in times of extreme trauma and difficulty, and it's not times of extreme stress that can happen. So it's not sort of like some mythical thing that you, what's it called, you cry blood, but this is actually something that can happen. So here, this person is almost speaking to Imam Al-Busiri and asking him a question. You're crying, and your tears aren't just tears of clear substance, rather they are red in colour. These tears of yours, what is the reason for these tears? Is it because you remember these people who were in a bygone place called Dhu Salami? The second verse, أم هبت الريح من تلقاء كاظمة وأومض البرق في الظلماء من إضم. Or are these tears because of the blowing wind from the direction of a place called Kaldima, another place where your jiran, where your loved ones once resided, but are no longer there? وأومض البرق في الظلماء من إضم, and lightning flashing from a place called Idam, in the dark that you see. So here Imam Busiri is mentioning three places: Dhu Salami, Kaldima, and Idam. All of these places are places that can be found in and around Mecca and Medina, in that place of war. They are no longer there anymore, so these towns are been and gone. But here Imam Busiri is saying that, or a question that is asking him, why are you crying? Is it because you remember the people that once lived in Dhu Salami that you are with? Or is it because a wind is blowing from the direction of Kaldima? And when a wind blows, it carries with it the scent of the direction it is blowing from. So you could smell, it's almost as if you can smell the loved ones that once lived in Kaldima with this wind that is blowing from that direction. Or is it the flashing of lightning from the direction of idam, in the dark that you see? So when the lightning flashes, imagine pitch black dark at night, and you see lightning flash. And obviously they didn't have lights back then, they didn't have like street lights or anything like that, so you didn't sort of like have any other polluted light, it was just pure darkness. And every time the lightning flashes, because of his love for these people, every time the lightning flashed, it's as if he saw their tents and their homes still erect in that place called Idam. And he's thinking, are they still there? But that's just his love painting a picture for him. So here, this imaginary friend of his is asking him these questions, asking as to why these tears are flowing, and he's given him reasons for it. Imam Busiri doesn't respond. He stays quiet. He doesn't say anything in response to these questions. He doesn't answer them in any way, shape or form, rather he stays quiet. So the questioner, this imaginary friend of his, goes on in the third verse to say, فَمَا لِعَيْنَيْكَ إِن قُلْ تَكْفُ فَاهَمَةَ وَمَا لِقَلْبِكَ إِن قُلْ تَسْتَفِقْ يَهْمِ. So what is wrong with your eyes? When you say stop, they just weep. And with your heart, when you say be sane, it acts crazily. SubhanAllah. So here we have Imam Al-Busiri staying silent. And because of his silence, it is as if he is refusing to accept what the questioner is saying. It's almost as if he's saying, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not crying for anything. I'm not even crying at all. I don't feel any pain in my heart for anybody or anyone. I'm perfectly fine and I'm perfectly sane. Right? That's what his silence is saying to the questioner. But the questioner realizes that I can see on your face these tears flowing down, and I can see the grief in your eyes and in your face, and I can see it in the way that your body language is what your body is saying. So sometimes, even when we are silent and we want to withhold our feelings from another, they end up our senses and our other sort of body parts, our eyes and our face, and the way we gesture, the way we move, they give our feelings away even though we don't want to say anything about them. So we asked him, فَمَا لِعَيْنَيْكَ إِن قُلْ تَكْفُ فَاهَمَةَ وَمَا لِقَلْبِكَ إِن قُلْ تَسْتَفِقْ يَهْمِ. So what is wrong with your eyes? فَمَا لِعَيْنَيْكَ إِن قُلْ تَكْفُ فَاهَمَةَ. You say to them, stop. Hamata, right? Hama, meaning that they, hamaya, that's the original verb for it, meaning to weep, to constantly flow with tears. And what is wrong with your heart? وَمَا لِقَلْبِكَ إِن قُلْ تَسْتَفِقْ يَهْمِ. That you say to it, be sane, and it still acts crazily. It's still feeling the love, it's still feeling the grief of parting of loved ones.
Sure. The mic is a bit echoey. The live stream is a bit echoey. Maybe it's interference.
Alright. He goes on to say, يَحْسَبُ الصَّبْرُ أَنَّ الْحُبَّ مُنْكَتِمٌ مَا بَيْنَ مُنْسَجِبٍ مِنْهُ وَمُطَّلِبٍ. Verse number 4 says, one so love-struck, imagine love is conceivable between a downpour from it, and his eyes, and being so fiery, and his heart. So here now, the questioner is no longer speaking to Imam Busiri. He's now turned away from Imam Busiri. It's like he's speaking to Imam Busiri. Is it because you remember your loved ones in Dhu Salami that you're crying blood? Or is it because the wind is blowing from Kalbima? Or is it because the lightning is flashing from Idam? And he's speaking to him, speaking to Imam Busiri while he is saying this. And now in this verse, in verse number 4, he's no longer speaking to Imam Busiri. It's almost as if he turns away from Imam Busiri and starts speaking about him in the third person. And he says, أَيَحْسَبُ الصَّبُّ. Does one so love-struck? A sab is the one who is in awe of his beloved. One who can't think straight as a result of his beloved. So in love, fallen in love so hard that he can't think straight. That is the sab. أَيَحْسَبُ الصَّبُّ. The one who is so love-struck. أَنَّ الْحُبَّ مُنْكَتِمٌ. Does he think that his love is concealable, that he can hide it just by his silence? No. It's been given away by مَا بَيْنَ مُنْسَجِمٍ مِّنْهُ وَمُطَّرِمِ. A downpour of the eyes and something fiery, مُطَّرِمِ, قَلْبٍ مُطَّرِم. Right? So the heart, the clutches of the heart, the palpitations of the heart, you can see that on a person's face. Right? His face becomes red, right? Or he becomes pale in color. Right? You start speaking about, the person that he loves, and he knows that he can't get to the person that he loves anymore. Right? He's been separated from them. The minute you start mentioning their name, something happens to the heart. Right? Doesn't want to speak to you about it, but you continue to speak to him about it, and he's dying inside, and you know that he's dying inside, even though he's not saying, he's saying, no, I'm fine, no, I don't care about it anymore, I'm over it, but you can see he's not over it. So this is the situation here at this point in time. So he turns to the third person and he's speaking about Imam Al-Busiri in the third person. And then he turns back to him. لولا الهوى لم ترق دمعا على طلل. Verse number 5. لولا الهوى لم ترق دمعا على طلل ولا أرقت لذكر البان والعلم. If not for passion, you would have never burst into tears at the remains, nor lost sleep over the mount or the tree. If it wasn't for love, so he reverts back to Imam Busiri and starts speaking to him again and saying, if it wasn't for this love that you feel, it wasn't for this passion, and hawa is when you have fallen in love, right? You've just fallen. Hawa comes from the word hawa or hawiya, yahwa. To love something, to be passionate about something, to be awe-inspired by something, to have something as your goal that you aspire to in life, and that's the thing that you're always aiming at because you love doing it and because it gives you fulfillment and so on and so forth. All of that is housed in the word hawiya. Another word, hawa, yahwi, means to fall. So not only is this a love and a passion that one feels for something, but it's also something that he falls for, right? And there's no getting up, right? You're down and out for the count. So لولا الهوى, if it wasn't for this love and passion that you felt, لم ترق دمعا على طلل. So up to this point, Imam Busiri is still silent. لولا الهوى لم ترق دمعا على طلل ولا أرقت لذكر البان والعلم. He's still silent. So it's almost as if the questioner is saying to him and almost proving to him that, look, you're still quiet, and don't think that your silence is enough for me to overlook the fact that you are drowning in this in heartbreak. What I can see is, if it wasn't for love, you wouldn't have cried. Over ala talal, over at the remains. Ala talal. Talal is the remains of something. Now, talal is if you look at sort of like, the old villages that have long been not lived in for a long time, and people have migrated and they've gone to live in other places. Over time, the buildings they erode and they collapse, and all that's left is sort of like the foundations or the walls or a roof here and a door here, and there's rubble all around. Picture a site of that. That is talal. Talal in old Arabia was when Bedouins would go from place to place and they would erect their tents. They would light fires and they would have little sort of watering holes for their livestock to drink in and so on and so forth, their camels and horses to drink in. And then they would migrate from place to place. So once they leave this place that they are currently residing in, what's left is the the remains of their firewood, the remains of their watering hole, and the remains of where they pitched their tent, and whatever other things that they discarded of there and then and left behind and moved on to. That is the atlal, that is the talab. So it is almost as if he is crying at the remains. So obviously his loved ones have gone from wherever they were. He was with them at one point and now they have left, right? So he is now crying over their remains, not even them. He looks at their remains of where they once resided, and he remembers all of the fond memories that they had together, all of the different experiences that they experienced together. He is now remembering all of those things, and he's wishing that they would come again, and those very memories are causing him grief. وَلَا أَرِقْتَ لِذِكْرِ الْبَانِ وَالْعَلَمِ. Nor would you lose sleep. Araq is when you have insomnia, you can't sleep, right? And anybody who's been in love before, right, knows, I see Riyaz laughing there. Anybody who's been in love before knows that when you are in a state of heartbreak, there is no sleep. You can't sleep. You are even when you are laying down on your mattress trying to sleep, your eyes are wide awake and all you can think of are these memories that you had together. You went to this place here, right, and you had some ice cream. You went to that place there, right? And you did something else. Well, good memories. I don't know why you're laughing. This is real talk here. Real talk here. And it doesn't have to be with the opposite sex, guys. Come on, let's be mature about this, right? You have fond memories I remember my fond memories in Egypt with my friends there. And every now and again, I remember when I first came back here as well, and I missed it so much. I didn't have that much insomnia. Maybe I didn't love them as much, but there were nights where I would think about it, and I would lose sleep as a result of it. I wouldn't sleep as well because of thinking of the days and the hours that I used to spend with the mashayikh and the majalis and that atmosphere of ilm and talab and just the beauty of it all. So yeah, let's widen our horizons here, guys. Wala ariqta, so you wouldn't have had insomnia, you wouldn't have lost sleep over the remembrance of al-ban. Al-ban is the tree, a type of tree. It is the moringa tree. It's found in like Asia and Africa. It's a tree that can sort of house water in it for a long time. It doesn't require a lot of sort of rain or anything like that for it to survive. And it's found in Arabia a lot. And this was found in places around Mecca and Medina as well, and still is to this day. So he remembers this tree. وَالْعَلَمِ and the mount. The mount, alam is another word for a mountain. Any type of hill or mountain, a high place is called al-alam. So he is remembering the trees that surround the areas of his beloved. And he also remembers the mount. What mount is he talking about? All right, the mountain of Uhud maybe, right? The mountain of light, Jabal al-Nur, where Ghar Hira is, right? Who knows which mount is causing him insomnia, but he is losing sleep over the remembrance of these places. فَكَيْفَ تُنْكِرُ حُبًّا بَعْدَ مَا شَهِدًا. Verse number 6. So the questioner goes on to say, and he explicitly now challenges Imam Al-Busiri. فَكَيْفَ تُنْكِرُ حُبًّا بَعْدَ مَا شَهِدَتْ بِهِ عَلَيْكَ عُدُولُ الدَّمْعِ وَالسَّقَمِ. So how do you still deny a love to which testified against you true witnesses of tears and infirmity? Here the questioner is saying that you are still silent up until this point, meaning that you still reject and refuse to accept all of the things that I am saying to you with regards to how you feel. And this is all untrue because there are witnesses that have come forth and testified against you. These witnesses are who? Ad-dam'i was-saqami. Tears that have flown from your eyes, and saqam, a malady, an illness, a sickness. He says here, the translator, infirmity, right? A type of sickness, a weakness that we can clearly see in your body and the way you are sitting and the way you are, the paleness in your face, and so on and so forth. So here he is outright saying to him, listen, you are rejecting what I'm saying to you, but it's so clear in the light of day that nobody else can deny. When they look at you, you may not say anything, and you may not describe all of these things, but we can all see on your face that this is how you truly feel. Right? شَهِدَتْ بِهِ عَلَيْكَ عُدُولُ الدَّمْعِ وَالسَّقَمِ. So he is making the dam', the tears, and the pale look on his face. These people are like witnesses, witnessing against it, right? And they are not just any old witnesses, they are udul. You know what udul means? Adl, right? A shahid al-adl is the one whose testimony cannot be refused. So when you go to a court and there is a dispute and we bring witnesses, if that witness is adl, that means that his testimony is taken 100%, right? And to be adl, you have to be of a certain caliber with regards to your akhlaq, your iman, your taqwa, the way you carry yourself, and so on and so forth. All of these things are taken into account with regards to testimony. So here, his tears and his sickness, it's almost as if like they reach the highest caliber with regards to witness, meaning that his feelings are the most emotive and the highest in which you can feel with regards to love. وأثبت الوجد in verse number 7 وأثبت الوجد خطي عبرة وضنا مثل البهار على خديك والعنم. When grief has fixed, so he's continuing, so how can you still deny when grief has fixed on your cheeks canals of tears and malay, like branches of dogwood red and daffodils yellowy. Here he is making a similitude between these branches of dogwood, which are red in color, which are a metaphor for the tears that are flowing down his eyes, and daffodils yellowy, the yellow color of his malay on his face. So that sickness, that ill look that he has on his face. There he's drawing a similitude between these things and what he's seeing on his face. So grief has done this to him. Al-wajd. Al-wajd is grief, or it's actually love, but it's love with a grief that is attached to it, with a sadness that is attached to it. And that sadness is only attached to love whenever the thing that you love is not in your reach, when it's out of your reach. That's when wajd kicks in. It's a type of love. So there's hub, there's mahabba, there's hawa, there's wajd. All of these things are a type of love. They're a type of love. And so it's almost as if Busiri is going through all of these different types of love in terms of his journey with regards to his loved ones that he misses so much. Then he goes on in verse number 8. In verse number 8, finally, Imam Al-Busiri responds to this imaginary friend that is asking him all of these questions, which is in fact him asking himself questions. Now, this isn't weird. I know it sounds like crazy, right? You imagine someone that's you, that's talking to you, and then you're answering back and so on and so forth. This is totally normal. right? Totally normal in this particular scenario and situation. When you are afflicted with that much grief, isn't it when you make a mistake, right? Sometimes you say something to someone that you really respect and you wish you never said it, and you go home that day and you're kind of like in your bedroom or you're in the shower and you're just thinking about the thing that you said and you're like, oh, why did I even say that, man? You such an idiot. You should just get your mouth shut, right? And it's like if anybody's walking past the shower, so, or walking past your road, it's like, who are you talking to? So no. Just saying. Right? So he then, so in verse number 8, he decides to now stake his case. So this guy is asking question after question. He's showing him up and he's basically exposing him for the way he feels. So he needs to now stand up and say something about it. So he says, نعم سرى طيف من أهوى فأرقني والحب يعترض اللذات بالألم يا إلهي نعم سرى طيف من أهوى فأرقني والحب يعترض اللذات بالألم. Yes. He says yes. Sights of my love have come at night and kept me awake. How love repels all delights and comforts with agony. Allah. So he affirms what the questioner is, this imaginary friend that he has, is saying to him. He affirms it. He says, you know what? I accept and I agree. And 100% you are correct. I do feel this way. I am upset. I am filled with grief because I am so much in love with this person or these people that have gone from my life, that are no longer in my life anymore. And this has caused me to فَأَرَّقَني, right? We said that araq, insomnia, same word again coming up. نعم سرى طيف من أهوى فأرقني. So طيف, so سرى, let's start from the beginning. So نعم is yes, سرى is something that comes at night, right? سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى. You all know that, right? So the night journey of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he went from Mecca to Bayt al-Maqdis, this was a journey in the night. So Sara, Asra bi'abdihi, meaning that traveled by night. So anything that comes to you at the night, anything that moves at night, goes from one place to another in the dark of the night is called Sara, right? That's Sara, that's the action. So Sara tayfu. So tayf is a vision or an image that you see at night, right? So you know when it's dark, sometimes your eyes can play tricks on you and you think you can see something, right? So you know it's spider season right now, right? SubhanAllah, the other night, just laying in bed, and my bed is sort of like next to a window. Could have sworn I saw the biggest spider coming through my window. Right? And I got so scared. I was like, oh my God. Turn the light on, there's nothing there. That's a taif. Right? That's a taif. Taif can be scary and it can also be something good as well. So when you see, for example, an image of your father who has passed away, for example, in the sort of early hours of the night, right? Or you see an image of someone that you love and revere and respect, and they come to you at night, and it's like you see them in the night, and you know they're not there, but you kind of just see a glimpse of them, and it's like, that's a taif, right? So here, Imam Al-Busiri is saying, yes, Sara taifu man ahwa, that this image of the person that I love comes to me at night. I see them at night, and this causes me فَأَرَّقَنِي, to have insomnia. This causes my sleep to disappear. I can't sleep whenever I see this image. I can't sleep. وَالْحُبُّ يَعْتَرِضُ اللَّذَّاتِ بِالْأَلَمِ. And then he says, وَالْحُبُّ يَعْتَرِضُ اللَّذَّاتِ بِالْأَلَمِ. It's almost as if like he is, surprised, or not surprised, but he is affirming something that is obvious. وَالْحُبُّ يَعْتَرِضُ اللَّذَّاتِ بِالْأَلَمِ. Of course, I want to sleep, right? But I can't. Why can't I? Because of my love. وَالْحُبُّ يَعْتَرِضُ اللَّذَّاتِ بِالْأَلَمِ. يَعْتَرِضُ, so how is it translated here? How love repels all delights. يَعْتَرِض means to repel, right? To push something away, right? So here he's saying that love repels comforts and delights as a result of the agony that is associated with it. Yeah? Associated with that love. Because he's no longer with the people that he loves. They have gone away. And because of that grief, he no longer, every time he remembers them or every time he sees them, there is that love and that affection, but because they're no longer with him, there is an agony that is associated with that love. And because of that agony, he can no longer find any sleep and any comfort. He can't rest, he can't eat, he can't enjoy even the love that he has for these people anymore because of the pain that it causes him whenever he remembers them because they're not there anymore. وَالْحُبُّ يَعْتَرِضُ اللَّذَّاتِ بِالْأَلَمِ. Ya la'imi. Then he goes on in verse number 9. Ya la'imi fil hawa. Then now he begins to rebut the questioner. This questioner that was putting him down, telling him what's what, trying to describe his feelings to him, even though he's the one who's feeling them. He begins to rebut this person. So he says, Ya la'imi fil hawa al-udhri ma'dhiratan minni ilayka walau ansafta lam talumi. You, critic of love, so passionate, an apology from me to you. But if you were true, you'd not censure me, you'd not criticize me. Ya la'imi. La'imi is the one who has lawm, the one who is blaming, right? So the one who's criticizing. And criticizing unnecessarily, unjustly. La'im, right? So ya la'imi. O you who is criticizing me unjustly, censuring me unjustly. As a result of my love. Fil hawa al-udhri. Udhri. My love also is udhri. Udhri comes from the word udhr. Udhr is when you have an excuse for something, right? So when I make a mistake, I forget maybe an ayah in the Quran, for example, right? So that's an udhr. I've forgotten because as a result of me thinking about something else, or me not sort of revising as much as I should be revising. So I've forgotten an ayah, and that's I give an excuse for that. I didn't revise last night, or I didn't read this part of the Quran before I came to recite it to you. So that's an udhr, that's an excuse. So here he is almost saying that his love is excusable, right? My love is excusable. Ya la'imi fil hawa al-udhri ma'dhiratan minni ilayka walau ansafta lam tulumi. And then he goes on to say, that's why he goes on to say, there's an apology from me to you. And this apology is almost like I'm just apologizing to you, not necessarily because I've done something wrong, rather I apologize to you because you don't realize my situation. You don't realize and recognize the situation or the circumstance that I find myself in. I love someone, right? I love these people, and they are no longer with me. If you had experienced any form of what I feel, you wouldn't criticize me or censure me. You would understand, right? And you would recognize that I have an excuse for feeling the way I feel and crying the way I'm crying and feeling the sickness and not being able to sleep. You're telling me sleep. You're telling me stop crying. You're telling me all of these things. I can't do those. And even though you may think it's a bad thing that I can't do those, if you were in my situation, you'd understand why I can't do those. And if you were in my situation, you'll be with me crying, you'll be with me in insomnia and not being able to sleep. وَلَوْ أَنصَفْتَ لَمْ تَلُومِ. Ansafta comes from the word insaf, to be just and to be true. لَمْ تَلُومِ, you wouldn't censure me. لَوْم, لَائِمِ, تَلُومِ. There's a bit of tibaq and jinas going on there as well. In the poem. Then he goes on to say in verse number 10, عَدَتْكَ حَالِي لَا سِرِّي بِمُسْتَتِرٍ عَنِ الْوُشَاةِ وَلَا دَائِي بِمُنْحَسِمِ. May you be spared what I bear. My secret isn't concealed from haters, nor is there any end to my malady. So here he is making almost as if he's making a dua for for the one who is censuring him, his questioner, his imaginary friend. He's saying, عَدَتْكَ حَالِيَ, يعني لا عَدَتْكَ حَالِيَ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not allow you to experience what I've experienced. Whatever I am, whatever situation I find myself in, inshallah, that doesn't pass on to you and you don't experience what I experienced. So عَدَتْكَ حَالِيَ. Either he is making dua for him, or we can understand it as he is informing him, عَدَتْكَ حَالِيَ, meaning that or my feelings are not, you don't feel the same feelings that I feel. Right? I'm telling you, you don't feel the same feelings that I feel. That's why you can't understand what it is that I'm going through. But the first is better, right? The fact that it's a dua. He's almost saying like, Ya Allah, you don't get it. So he's saying in the previous verse, Ya la'imi fil hawa al-udhri ma'diratan minni ilayka walau ansafta. If you were true, if you recognized, if you understood, lam talumi, you wouldn't blame me. So he's already saying that you're not in the situation that I'm in. So now he's saying that inshallah you never get to the situation that I'm in, right? You never find yourself so deeply in love with someone that you can never connect with, right? That connection is severed. Inshallah you never find yourself in that position. عَدَتْكَ حَالِي لَا سِرِّي بِمُسْتَتِرٍ. My secret isn't concealed. From who? عَنِ الْوُشَاةِ. From my haters. Wushat isn't actually a hater, right? A hater is someone who hates you, right? And it doesn't have your best interest. But the wushat is the plural of the word washin. And washin is someone who goes between the lover and the one that he loves and tries to ruin their relationship. Right? So he goes up to him and he says, you know what? I heard her say about you that your beard doesn't connect. right? And that you don't earn enough at your job, and that just generally, you don't have many friends, right? And then he goes up to her and he says, you know what? He said that your nose is big, and that I don't know, your eyebrows are too thick. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I'm being facetious here. But the point is, the washin is someone who goes in between two people and tries to ruin their relationship, right? Spreads lies, backbites, namima, ghiba, all that sort of stuff, right? All so that the two lovers now look at each other with a different lens and see that, you know what, maybe your love for me isn't true. And maybe what you're saying it to me, but behind my back you're saying other things to other people, right? And so they don't come together, right? This happens often with regards to people who want to get married and the parents don't like that, that marriage. And I think the boy is not good for my daughter, right? So they start saying things about him, whatever they start saying. It's common, it happens a lot, right? So that particular parent right there is a washi. From the wushat, there's a hater right there. Okay. So his secret, la sirri bi mustatirin, my secret isn't concealed from these people. And that's a bad thing, because they don't have my best interest at heart. They're trying to split me up from my beloved, right? So I have to try and keep my secret concealed from them, but it's not. So this is, he's talking to this guy who is censuring him and criticizing him. And he's saying, do you not feel for me in my situation? I can't hide my feelings even though I'm not saying anything. And it's now known to the people who are enemies to me and don't want the best for me, and are going to try and split me up between me and my beloved. Isn't that a bad situation to be in? Do you not still feel for me there? Are you still going to censure me even after that? وَلَا دَائِي بِمُنْحَسِنِي, nor is there any end to my malady. There is no end to this feeling that I feel. I want to get out of it. I want to stop feeling this grief. I want to stop feeling so upset. I want to sleep. I want to eat. I want to go back to my normal life, but I just can't. So don't you feel after all of that I don't deserve to be censured? I don't deserve to be looked at like, how dare you love this person so much? Fix up, mate. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? SubhanAllah. Then he goes on. ما حطني النصح لكن لست أسمعه إن المحب عن العذال في صمم. You've offered me true advice, but simply I hear it not. The lover is deaf to all of those who speak critically. Allah, right? So you've offered me true advice. ما حطني النصح. Now he's saying, is he saying this like being serious, or is he just saying this like, okay, you've given me sound advice, let's move on, right? Because he's trying to sort of appeal to his critique's emotions, right? Like, look, this is the situation that I'm in. Do you still not understand? I know you haven't experienced it, but this is what I'm going through. Do you still not have any pity on me? Do you still not have any mercy on me? So it's almost as if the questioner says, no, I still don't. So he wants to end the conversation. So he says, ما حطني النصح لكن لست أسمعه. Okay, you've given me sound advice. So he's either saying this in earnestness, that yes, okay, fine, this is sound advice, but I can't hear it. I simply don't hear it. Or he's saying it as if like, okay, fine, yeah, whatever. You've given me sound advice, even though it's not sound advice. You've given me sincere advice, even though you're not sincere in giving it. Because if you were sincere, you would have taken into account the way I feel. You would have tried to experience some of the things that I felt first before you critique me in my emotions and my feelings. So ما حطني النص. You've given me sound advice. You've given me sincere advice and true advice. لكن لست أسمعه. But simply I hear it not. Or I cannot hear it, or I don't hear it. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's not listening. Yes, he is listening. He hears it. Because sometimes even, like when you're in love with someone, and even though you can't be with that person that you love, just hearing about them, even in a bad way, like, oh, bro, you can't be with them. They're not here. You're never gonna, be together, and so on and so forth. Even that is pleasurable in an agonizing way to hear. Right, just speaking about your beloved, even in a not so good way, even a not so hopeful way, is still something that you enjoy deep down in your heart, even though it is mixed with all of that agony. So he is listening, for sure he's listening. It's not like he's not listening, but he's just not accepting. That's what he's saying. لكن لست أسمعه. I don't hear it. يعني I don't accept what it is that you're advising me with. إن المحب عن العذال في صمم. It's almost as if the questioner asks, why are you not accepting what it is that I'm saying to you? So he responds by saying, the lover is deaf to all of those who speak critically, right? And this is true, and we know this. When two people are in love, and you try to explain to them logically and reasonably that, look, you guys can't be together, right? You're still in university, you still haven't finished your education, you don't have a job, how are you going to support her? But even by explaining all of these things, it's still like, no, we love each other. So we're going to get married. And it's like, brother, please understand. And it's like, no, they can't understand, right? And the same thing with the sister as well. The sister will be like, no, I love him and he loves me and we need to be together and we want to be halal. So they're not listening to any reason. It's like, okay, where are you guys going to live? We'll make it work. He can live in his house, I'll live at my house, and we can make it work like that. No problems, right? They'll come up with all these like sort of ways out just to be together, right? And that is the epitome of someone who is in love that's not willing to listen to any reason whatsoever. Not listen to it, but rather not accept it, not willing to come to those logical conclusions. So the lover is deaf to all those who speak critically. Udhal are the ones who, adal, the one who is a critique and blaming. Fi samami, samam is deafness. And the way he says it, fi samami, inside, right? Fi is dharfiyya, right? When you're inside something, right? So you say, nahnu fil masjid, we are inside the masjid. So we use the word fi for dharfiyya, that we are enclosed and encapsulated by the masjid. The masjid is all around us and we are inside of it. So it's almost as if he is saying that I am encompassed by deafness. I can't hear anything. No sound is going to traverse and transcend this barrier that I have surrounded myself with. And that barrier is the love that he feels for his beloved. إِنِّي اتَّهَمْتُ, he goes on in the final verse of this chapter, إِنِّي اتَّهَمْتُ نَصِيحَ الشَّيْبِ فِي عَدَدِ. So it's almost as if the questioner asks now, why is it that you're not accepting what I'm saying to you? Why is it that you have rejected all of these things? Despite me giving you true advice. You saying that you're saying that I've given you true advice. Why is it that you don't accept the true advice, even though it is true? He says, إِنِّي اتَّهَمْتُ نَصِيحَ الشَّيْبِ فِي عَدَدِ وَالشَّيْبُ أَبْعَدُ فِي نُصْحٍ عَنِ التُّهَمِ يَا إِلَهِ. I've even doubted grey hair's advice when it censures me, although grey hair with advice is less indubiity. So here he's giving another reason as to why he's not accepting what he's saying. He's saying, look, you're giving me sincere advice. I have now become grey in my head, right? Grey hairs are now appearing on my head. And I have not taken heed of them, right? Or someone who is elderly has come and given me advice and I have not heeded his advice, right? وَالشَّيْبُ أَبْعَدُ فِي نُصْحٍ عَنِ التُّهَمِ. And grey hair, or the elderly, they are further away from sort of conspiring and being dubious in what they say with regards to their advice. Why? Because when you're old, when grey hairs appear in your head or in your beard, not just experience, but you know you're close to your death, right? You are facing from your life less than you have lived, right? So there is no reason to be dubious, there is no reason to connive, there is no reason to be insincere, because you know you're about to meet Allah and you're about to meet your hisab. So what do? You give people sincere advice so that there is a khalaf for you, there is some form of sadaqah jariyah for you, something that lives on after you have died, right? So when an elderly person comes and gives you advice, they're not giving you advice for the most part anyway. There are exceptions, of course, but for the most part, it is sincere advice, right? And also, whenever you become old, for the most part, you recognize, I need to fix my ways, right? I have lived a life and I need to fix whatever wrong that I have done in that life. So I have accused or doubted that advice from someone who is not doubtful and not dubious. Rather, his advice should be taken. I have even doubted his advice. So what about your advice? You are a young man like me, right? So he did this tajdeed thing where he's speaking to himself, who is of similar age, right? So it's like, you are me and I am you. You're giving me advice, but you have a stake, right, in my beloved, because you're of the same nature as I am. You are me. So you have a stake in my beloved. So when you're giving me advice, are you giving me advice so that I can actually better myself? Or are you giving me advice so that you can have a piece of the pie as well? Right? Why are you giving me advice? What's going on here? Do you have my best interests at heart? Right? So I have doubted the advice of someone who doesn't have that. So what about you? Am I not going to doubt your advice? This is, even in sort of that, there's ayat in the Quran that talk about shayb and talk about grey hair. We know that shayyabatni Hud wa akhawatuha, that the Prophet ﷺ became grey in his hair, and the Sahaba asked him, Ridwanullahi alayhim, that why have you become grey, or what happened? How comes you now have grey hair in your head? And the Prophet ﷺ said he recited the Surah Hud and the accompanying surahs of Surah Hud. And then they talk about the Yawm al-Qiyamah and the platform of the Prophet ﷺ and the responsibility that he's going to have Yawm al-Qiyamah and the responsibility he has here in the dunya with regards to the da'wah and Islam and so on and so forth. And he felt that so hard that he became great. And there's an ayah as well. أولم نعمركم ما يتذكر فيه من تذكر وجاءكم النذير وجاءكم النذير. Right? This have we not? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in, I think it's Surah Al-Ma'idah, I believe it's Surah Al-Ma'idah or Surah Al-An'am, I'll double check that anyway, that have we not allowed you to live a long life, have we not extended your life, so that whoever wishes to take heed and remembers. يَتَذَكَّرُ فِيهِ مَنْ تَذَكَّرُ. Whoever takes heed, whoever wishes to remember and remind themselves, does so. وَجَاءَكُمُ النَّذِيرُ. And a nadhir has come to you, a warner has come to you. Mufassirun say that warner is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But another tafsir of this ayah is that warner is grey hair. Grey hair has come to your head. This is the warner that you are going to die. Because he's talking about how he's lengthened your lives and you've lived for a certain period of time. وَجَاءَكُمُ النَّذِيرُ. So now the nadhir has come, the warning has come, which is your grey hair, meaning that you're about to pass on to the next world. Take heed, change your ways, come back to Islam. Yeah? So this is something that is known in the Sharia as well. And obviously the Prophet ﷺ, some of the things that he says with regards to love is that حُبُّكَ لِلشَّيْءِ يُعْمِي وَيُصِمُّ. That your love for something, it causes you to become blind and deaf, right? Which is exactly what Imam Al-Busiri is feeling. And this is exactly how the Prophet ﷺ describes your love for something, right? It causes you to be blind to any wrong that person does, right? Even when they say certain things that are outrageous, they do things that are outrageous, you find for them an excuse, right? So no, they only said that and they only did that because right? The angels really, right? And you're deaf to any advice that anybody gives you regarding them, right? This is love for you, and love is not something that is strange to Islam or our ulama for that matter. Even the mashayikh, rahimahumullah, have authored books in the subject of love. We have was it Ibn Hazm, Tawq al-Hamama. He read about love, a book dedicated just to love and how love affects a person's decision making, how it affects even his iman and connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The different types of love. You have love for Allah and His Messenger. There's a type of love. You have love for sort of the opposite sex. That's another type of love. You have love for your children. That's another type of love. He explores all of these different themes and all these different areas of love and how they manifest themselves in a person's sort of character and emotion and so on and so forth. So Imam Al-Busiri is not strange in delving into these matters. Now, this last verse, when he talks about going grey and growing old, is a beautiful segue into chapter 2. Chapter 2 is going to be talking about the admonishing the whims of the self, and he's going to go into the nafs and the intricacies of the nafs and how it doesn't take heed, right, in certain circumstances, even though it claims to be a nafs of piety and taqwa and ibadah, but in reality, what tends to happen is, it takes you down a different path, despite that shade being there. And it's going to be a recurring theme, this theme of old age in the next chapter as well. We'll bring that to a close, inshallah, for this particular session, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And we will resume, inshallah, with chapter 2 next week, inshallah ta'ala. I hope, bi'idhnillah, I did some justice to the verses there. Difficult to encapsulate a lot of what Imam Busiri is saying, but inshallah, hopefully, that has benefited you guys. Are there any questions with regards to what we've spoken about? Bismillah.
This is the first part of the point. How would you summarize it? Is there different parts?
Yeah, hopefully we're going to do a chapter a session. There are certain chapters which are a lot more intricate. I mean, this is easy in the sense of the subject matter itself. The language is quite difficult firstly to translate and also to communicate and to try and sort of encapsulate into some sort of meaning that everyone understands. So that's the only difficulty in this chapter, but the actual subject matter is really easy. It's all about love, it's all about tears, it's all about grief as a result of separation from your beloved. But the admonishing of the self, we can probably do it in one sitting. other chapters we can do in one sitting, but there are certain other chapters which are sort of quite detailed in what Imam Al-Busiri is alluding to. So we'll find in this poem that Imam Al-Busiri, because it's a poem and because it's really, really sort of like focused in terms of the words that he is using and how much sort of leeway that he has to speak. So he can't sort of like describe things, at length. He only has a verse to do it, and that verse is always also confined by the rhythmic pattern that we spoke about at the beginning, the bahr or the wazn. So what he's going to do is he's going to do isharat. He's going to point towards things. He's going to allude to them. He's going to mention a certain word that from that word you can understand from it he's talking about a hadith or an ayah in the Quran or a certain instance that happened in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And from that we can unpack and understand what it is that he's alluding to and how it is that he is describing whatever it is that's happening. So there's certain instances like that may take up a little bit more time, so we might have to break a chapter down into perhaps 2 sessions. But hopefully altogether, inshallah ta'ala, we hope to finish in around about 12 weeks. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, inshallah. So 3 months of the Burdah. It's the summer of the Burdah, inshallah. Are there any other questions?
Is he speaking to himself the whole time? Or is he like, who is he speaking to?
He's speaking to imagine an imaginary person that he's thought up for himself. And that imaginary person is him. So he's talking to himself, but he's doing it in a way that there's someone there.
Third person.
Yeah. So that's a common sort of tool that poets use in order to be able to describe something that is in themselves, but they don't want to talk in the first person. So they talk in the first person, it kind of sounds like, I did this and I did that, and I feel like this and I feel like that. It's like, yeah, stop talking about yourself, mate. We're tired of hearing about you. Let's hear about someone else once, right? So what it does is it allows the person to speak in the third person, in the second person, in the first person, and go from, this is called iltifat. And whenever you do this, it's almost like a story that's being told, right? So a protagonist and the antagonist and the audience that is watching the two. And 1 minute the protagonist is saying something, the other minute the antagonist is saying something, and then the audience is then getting involved, or the third person that's getting involved. You know what I mean? So it changes the way in which you're describing a simple event, which is literally love and the grief that is caused as a result of being separated from your loved ones. That's the subject. You can write that in a sentence. You can write that in those words, and that's it. Right? You can just say that I love my beloved, but I am separated from my beloved, and that has caused me grief. Perfect, no problem. I understand exactly what you're saying. But I don't want to just say that, right? I don't want to bore you. That's okay. And what else, bro? So what he does is he takes us on this journey that he's speaking to this person, and this person is speaking back to him. And Imam Busiri is then he's silent, and then he comes up to defend himself, and then he moves on. He's like, okay, fine. You don't agree with what I'm saying? Yallah, go. And from chapter 2 onwards, this imaginary friend suddenly disappears, and he's off now, speaking about something else entirely. So inshallah, all that to come. All that to come. Any more questions? Are there any questions online? We can't leave our brothers and sisters at home. I feel you guys, mashallah. Are there any? No. Who can check for me? I don't know, sometimes you guys say no and there are genuine questions on there. You know them ones, right? It's like a brother selling a short in the masjid. Is there a way to fix the echo? Allah, there's a question right there. Yes, there is, Zahid, and we have fixed it, inshallah. Alright, we'll bring the session to a close. Jazakumullah khairah for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next week. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها. اللهم ارزقنا حب نبيك صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم أفدنا من بردة إمام البصيري رحمه الله يا رب العالمين. اللهم احشرنا في زمرة الأنبياء والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. آمين يا رب العالمين. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. والسلام عليكم.